little long-winded, I think, and got cut off. So this is going to be part 2 of the digital imaging lecture. Let me get back to where I was. And I was talking about this right here. This is the digitizer. And so if you have phosphor plates, and they're very similar to film sizes, they are reusable, and they're placed into sealed little packets. And so those packets are what the phosphor plates are placed in the mouth. They're exposed, and then you would remove them from those packets. Those would be disposed of, and the phosphor plates are placed in the top of this digitizer, and they slide through. There's little slots, and so they slide through and end up in this tray down at the bottom. When they slide through the digitizer, the phosphor plates are scanned. The images are sent to the computer, very similar setup here. So the phosphor plates are scanned, the images are sent to the computer to be saved, and then the phosphor plates are wiped clean. They're erased. So when they drop out down in the bottom, or when this gets finished with its full cycle, your phosphor plates are blank and ready to be reused. Again, this is blurred out just to kind of keep patients' names from being shown, but just as an example, I wanted you to be able to see the little toolbars and different things that are available. And here, say the patient has come in and they, want tooth number 17 to be worked on or looked at or whatever. So they bring the patient in. Hey, we have an issue with this tooth, and the dentist is able to pull up the patient's chart, look at the tooth, look at any notes that they have about the tooth. When they click on it, it automatically pulls up radiographs, specifically any radiographs they have of that same tooth. And you can see here, there's even with it blurred out, you can see the decay and kind of the detail that would have been present. This image I was able to retrieve and have no patient names attached to it, just so you can have a little better idea of the detail that's seen here. This is a very straightforward, simple software setup. This will take you back into the patient's chart for their exam. You can export this, meaning save it to the computer or save it to a flash drive. You can print it, email it. You can edit, make exam notes, things like that. But within the digital imaging software, which in many cases, in fact most cases, is a separate component to the patient's chart. So you have the patient's chart where all their medical history and their clinical notes and dentition charting and all those things. But the imaging is typically a separate software, and they are connected. That's why you would go back to the patient chart here. But within digital software for imaging, you do have some common things. You're able to kind of change these settings just a little bit. These are going to be predetermined settings. You can reverse it so that all of your radiopaques are now radiolucent and all of your radiolucents are now radiopaque. Sometimes making that transition back and forth makes it easier to see certain things. I've shown you images of the polarized radiographs. Sometimes, again, that makes it easier to see things or explain to the patient. You'll also sometimes see images that have been put into, I call it sepia tone. It's like the brown rather than blacks and grays. It's brown and tan. Again, sometimes that's just easier on the eyes, and it's easier for dentists to be able to see certain things. You can rotate images. You can magnify. This is a really good feature if you're talking about endodontics or perio, maybe even some of the prosthodontic things. This is actually a ruler setting, and what you would do is you would click in one spot and then click in another spot, and it would actually measure that in millimeters, and you could click and see how much bone loss they had. You could see how much root was left on this deciduous tooth, how open this apex is still. So that just allows you to be able to measure certain things. And this is a setup where you can either soften or harden your contrast, or you can brighten or dim your density. And those are all things that can be adjusted within the software. Okay, this is just a different setup, different software. But here again, just like we were just talking about, this is going to be your contrast slide. That's going to be your density slide. You can manually change those. This is changing some of the polarity kind of things. We'll come back over here. This allows you to rotate the image to look at it from a different perspective. That's magnifying. That's your little measuring tool. This is flipping the image to different orientations. You can actually write on some of the images. If you were doing a consultation, you could draw like an arrow sometimes with the different softwares and then type notes within the image. This is the setting that, to me, the only way I know how to explain this is it looks like the little toys that you play with at Christmas, where it's a little box and you can put your hand through it, and it pushes little pins out the other side, but you can see the outline of your hand. That's what it looks like. It's the image that, let me go back and find that. It was this image. Again, I don't know what the purpose of that is. I've never seen anybody actually use it, but it's fun. Just something different way to look at things. Let's see, up across the top, you can save it. You can burn the image to a disk if you needed to give the patient a disk to take to another office. This probably pulls your full mouth back up or gives you options for mounts. That is emailing, printing. You just have all these different little options that you can pull up. And this is telling you, it's not lined up correctly. It's supposed to be telling you that it's this tooth. I think they've got some numbering issues. Okay, this is just kind of an explanation. This is a very old image, but it's a good standard image. They're showing you've got the x-ray machine here. You've got the sensor, and we're going to do comparison. So if you were using the sensor, it goes straight to the computer, which can be printed, stored, or you do film, which has to be processed, scanned, then it's in the computer. That is supposed to be telling you you can email things, but that phone's not going to email anything, I promise you. But they're also giving you the option of laser scanning here to put images in. So it's just kind of giving you the route of digital is straight to the computer and the things you can do with it. Film gets there eventually with a couple extra steps. Okay. This is just an interesting bits of information that I found about radiation and the radiation exposure that's involved with digital imaging. The sensors are more sensitive than conventional film, and because of that, you're able to reduce the radiation exposure to your patient by 50 to 80%. And again, as they improve sensors with every generation, that continues to decrease. And then there's different types of imaging. Direct digital imaging is considered your sensors, where you would put the sensor in the patient's mouth. The image is collected when x-rays hit it straight to the computer. Indirect digital imaging can be either the phosphor plates, which have to be run through the digitizer, or traditional film that's processed and then scanned. So there's different ways to get your image digital, and don't discount film. A lot of offices will take film full mouth and then scan the images, and then they're able to do a lot of the same things, not everything, but a lot of the same things that you are with the other direct digital imaging. The storage phosphor imaging, those are images that are going to be kept on the phosphor plates. That's not very common. And then the difference between each method is the image, what type of image it is, how large the file is. A lot of offices will go to intraoral digital well before they go to panoramics, because the panoramic digital machine is very expensive, and it's much easier to scan and save a pan image into a digital chart as opposed to the full mouth series. This is another image just showing you what the digital images can look like, and they're able to zoom in. These are the apices of teeth out of either this full mouth, of this pan, or of a separate image from a full mouth. And it looks like they're also looking at the T&J area here. I'm not sure what this is. This could be just width of the mandible kind of a thing. But they have lots of extraoral images, different angles, things like that they're just showing you just how the different images look. So this was the end of part 2 of digital imaging.